Going on in Ephesians chapter 4, we're going to start in verse 15. Uh, and really, we're still looking at the purpose of the church, the local church. And we'll go back to verse 11, but we're going to look at verse 15 and 16. Verse 11, and he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, that we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we should no longer be children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting, but speaking the truth in love, may grow up in all things to him who is the head, Christ. And these two are needed, not one without the other. Truth with love. If you're only speaking truth and not love, you're going to be harsh, judgmental, and it's not going to get through on the person because they want to feel that you love them. And if you're only speaking love and not truth, you're going to cause confusion. You're going to allow people to feel that it's okay to be that they're in their sin. But really, you need both. You need to love the person, and because you love them, you want to tell them the truth. Just like if you have a family member that you're very close to and they're about to get into something that's going to bring them heartache, you're going to warn them. And it's not because you're being judgmental or anything like that. You're speaking the truth in love. And a lot of times I see both. Someone is a brother's in sin and no one wants to tell them anything because they're saying, well, let's just love on them. But you need to tell them something because you love them. And then I see people with only speaking truth and they don't care about the person. So they're speaking the truth in harshness. And both are needed. Verse 16. So it's saying, verse 15, but speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. So he's talking about every joint supplies and every part does its share. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, whenever Paul's talking about the spiritual gifts and how he says he doesn't want them to be ignorant. And he says that there's diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit, differences in ministries, but of the same Lord. There are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works all in all. And he begins to talk about the different giftings. And he says in verse 11 of 1 Corinthians 12, But one and the same Spirit works all these things, distributing to each one each one individually as he wills. For as the body is one and has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we are all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and have all been made to drink into the same Spirit. For in fact, the body is not one member, but many. If the foot shall say, because I am not a hand, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? It's still part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where would be the smelling? But now God has set the members, each one of them, in the body just as he pleased. And if they were all one member, where would the body be? But now indeed there are many members, yet one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary, and those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, on these we bestow greater honor, and our unpresentable parts have greater modesty. But our presentable parts have no need. But God composed the body, having given greater honor to that part which lacks it, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Christ and members individually. So we all need each other, and the body functions together. And we can't say to one part of the body that I have no need of you. Or we can't say because I'm not that part of the body, I'm not part of the body. You have a place in the body of Christ. And that's the purpose of the local church that we read in the last video. Is their purpose is to equip you for that work of ministry. You're supposed to find your place in the body of Christ in the local church, and they're to build you up in it. And it's not just the job of the pastor, it's the job of the church. So it's important that each part fulfills its function, else the body is crippled and cannot operate properly. So when this is happening, though, when you are finding your place, when the church, the local church is finding, each of them are finding their place in the body, and they're fulfilling their function, their purpose. When this is happening, then the body is increased as it edifies itself in love. In the early church, they didn't have, nor did they depend upon church growth programs. The body of Christ was just operating naturally with the recognition of Jesus as the head. And the increase was just the natural result of the body being just the body, staying in the body, with Christ being the head. This all comes down under the heading of walking worthy of the calling wherein we were called. Remember, that's the beginning of this chapter. And this is the true walk of the believer, walking in love and unity, seeking the unity of the Spirit, recognizing that there is one body, one Spirit, one Lord, one faith, one God and Father of all. Speaking the truth in love and seeing the unity of the body becomes a sign of my spiritual maturity. And again, like the last video, I said, if you're in a local church where the pastor is seeking himself, the glory of himself, for him to grow, for him to get a name, for him to be on TV, for him to get book signings or whatever it is, then you need to leave. You need to go to a body where you're going to be edified, and you're going to edify also. Because it's not just about you, but a pastor, teacher should seek the growth of the body, and not to seek his own, but to be a servant. That's what the whole meaning of the word minister. It means a servant. Whenever in Joshua chapter 1, it says Joshua the servant, the minister of Moses, it says, and he was a servant to Moses. But it says, it uses the word minister in King James, and really that's the word in the Hebrew. A minister is a servant. And if your pastor is not a servant, he can speak so well, he can give good messages, he's funny, he knows, he's in tune with what the culture is all about. He can have all those things, but if he's not a servant and he's not seeking to edify the body, then you still need to go somewhere else, because you have a place in the body of Christ, and you need to fulfill that purpose of why God made you. And wherever you're at across the nation, I would recommend a Calvary Chapel church, because they teach verse by verse. For the most part, I mean, from the ones I've been to, the pastors are servants, and you need to find your place in the body to fulfill your role within the body.